that's everything that goes on here. If you listen to it, it's here, like that. Go ahead, pass down to Amen. You should see it live.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. We stopped last week with the shurut al-du'a, the conditions and the adab and the etiquette of making du'a from Al-Fatihah, that's found in Al-Fatihah. So everything from this chapter or this portion here, of course the whole book, Min Hidayat Surat Al-Fatihah, the guidance and benefits found in Al-Fatihah of Shaykh Abdul Razak, Hafidhullah. This chapter, Bayan Makanat al-Du'a, clarifying the level and the status and the importance of making du'a. So last week, we stopped with the shurut, the conditions for dua, the conditions and the etiquettes, the adab and the mannerisms of making dua. And we did the first one, but we'll do it again because we only did one. So, we only did one. Tayyib. So, the first most important thing when making dua is Al-Ikhlas. Al-Ikhlas. Sincerity, that a person is sincere when making dua. That a person is sincere when making dua. فقال حفظه الله الأول الإخلاص لله تبارك وتعالى فيه. The first one is sincerity for Allah Jalla wa'ala. That a person is sincere when they're making the dua. Number one. وهو أهم شرط, and that's the most important condition. Now the question was, or is, where in Al-Fatihah is this condition mentioned?
Being sincere?
Yeah.
Well, you alone with Dina Sirat or something.
Jade. And that's what he says. The point of mentioning that is, as he says, وَقَدْ جَاءَ ذِكْرُهُ مُقَدِّمًا بَيْنِ يَدَيِ الدُّعَاء, Surah Al-Fatihah. That ayah, إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ, you alone we worship, you alone we seek aid from, that comes before the dua. The dua is إِهْدِنَا الصِّرَاطَ الْمُسْتَقِيمَ. Before that is the clarification of ikhlas. إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ. You alone we worship, you alone, and you alone we seek your aid and your help. And the benefit on top of that is the wording, the way it's worded in Arabic, إِيَّاكَ. It points to al-hasr, as the ulama tafsir say, al-hasr. It's a restriction. It's worded in a way that it's restricted, that all worship is restricted to Allah. All worship is restricted to Allah, the way that it's worded in Arabic, إِيَّاكَ. إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ. طيب. So before the dua in Al-Fatihah, إِهْدِنَا الصِّرَاطَ الْمُسْتَقِيمَ, before that is the benefit of ikhlas. إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ. طيب. And he mentions a few ayat. We did this one last week, but that was just the benefit from that one. طيب. After that, under ikhlas, under the same chapter or under the same heading, he mentions the issue of the Anbiya, right? The prophets, and that they are وَسَطَى بَيْنَ اللَّهِ وَبَيْنَ خَلْقِهِ فِي بَيَانِ دِينِهِ. That they are in the middle as far as relaying the deen, relaying the information, al-balagh. And it's a difference because if ikhlas is for, if the dua is only for Allah, so if a person wants the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam to make intercession for him Yawm al-Qiyamah, right? If a person wants the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam to intercede for him and speak on their behalf Yawm al-Qiyamah, right? Then they make dua, but do they make dua to the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam or to Allah? To Allah, right? The dua is to Allah, that He allows the Prophet ﷺ to intercede. Tayyib. Why even mention that? Because it's an issue. As he says here, وَلَيْسُوا وَسَطَى بَيْنَ اللَّهِ وَبَيْنَ خَلْقِهِ فِي الدُّعَاءِ وَالْعِبَادَةِ. That the messengers, they're not in the middle, intermediaries when it comes to dua. That we don't have to go through the Prophet ﷺ for Allah, to ask Allah for anything. That we don't have to go through any of the Anbiya for them to relay a dua. For them to relay a dua. That the dua, when we pray, is strictly for Allah. That they're not in the middle of that. What they are in the middle of, as the Quran explains, is as far as al-balagh, relaying the deen, the information. Relaying the information. So he says, وَالنَّاظِرُ في آيات القرآن الكريم يجد آيات كثيرة تبدأ بقوله يسألونك. If you look at the ayat in the Quran, you'll find many ayats start with يسألونك. Right? If they ask you about this, they ask you about that. This is J. ويأتي الجواب عليها بقوله قل. Right? Qul. So they ask you something, and Allah says at the end of that, tell them, say this. Right? فيكون النبي عليه الصلاة والسلام واسطة في البلاغ. They ask you about Yawm al-Qiyamah, they ask you about the hukum on gambling, they ask you about khamr, alcohol. Say this, right? As far as relaying the deen. طيب, لكن في مقام الدعاء, when it comes to dua, that intermediary is removed from the siyaq, from the context. So, ajal jawab min Allah mubashara, Allah responds immediately. The ayah where they say, my slaves ask you about me, Allah says, there you are. فَإِنِّي, He didn't say tell them I'm close. Allah answered directly. فَإِنِّي قَرِيب. فَإِنِّي قَرِيب. I'm close. أُجِيبُ دَعْوَةَ الدَّاعِ إِذَا دَعَى. And when it comes to dua, there's no need for a third party to relay the dua to Allah. The Allah answers directly. He says, وَأَمَا الْإِعْتِقَادِ أَنَّ الدُّعَاء يَكُونُ أَنْفَعُ وَأَرْجَعُ عِنْدَ قَبْرِ فُلَانٍ أو بإحضار سورة الشيخ والنظر فيها ونحو هذا من التعلق بالأشياء فإن هذا كله من الضلال المبين. As far as the belief that the dua is more beneficial, some people believe the dua, some people very close to our locality where we're sitting right now, believe that the dua, if you go to the grave site of a righteous man or woman, you go to the grave site of one of the salihin, one of the righteous, they believe that the dua is more likely to be answered in that spot because you're standing next to their grave, which is a whole issue in itself, which he didn't get into here, but he mentioned it, as far as the belief that it's hoped that the dua will be answered because you're standing next to the grave of this person or that person, or that the dua is closer and is hoped to be answered because you're holding a picture of one of your shuyukh, one of your sheikhs, literally holding the picture while the person making dua looking at the picture of the sheikh. and making dua. Some of them believe that because of that, the dua is more likely to be accepted, right? And these other things that are connected to other things, he says all of this is clear misguidance, Yes?
Isn't that like a form of idol worship?
It depends on the level of the person.
You know, them holding a picture or something?
They're not worshiping the picture. The belief is that, or the grave, when they go to the grave, not all the time, it's not that they're worshiping the grave, right? But it's a third party. It's more likely that if I stand next to this grave, that Allah is going to answer my dua.
They're using that person as like an intercession?
Almost. That's why he brought it in this chapter. It's a lot more detail, but some of it is shirk, at the least bid'ah. And Shaykh Islam Taymiyyah has a book on it, Tawassul al-Wasila, I think it's translated too. And he's going to go into Tawassul too. Tawassul is going to be mentioned here. But he does all he mentioned, intentionally. Because books like this, or even other books on a level like this, a beginner level, entry level, they're not meant to be detailed. They're only meant to graze the surface. And then once you master this, and then you go to the next book a little thicker, this will be in there, and additions. Additional, whatever's in the level 1 book. Level 1 is inside of level 2 with more on top of it. But he didn't go into any detail on top of that. طيب. The second condition after al-ikhlas would be al-mutaba'a, following the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Al-mutaba'atu lil-Rasul al-Kareem alayhi salatu wasalam, following the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. وهذا أيضا منصوص عليه في سورة الفاتحة. But this comes from Surah Al-Fatihah. In Surah Al-Fatihah, where is it found, the condition or the etiquette, a manner of making dua that you have to follow the Messenger alayhi salatu wasalam?
The order itself, the order of the ayat itself. Because first you praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala before you praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you acknowledge, and He's the one that you worship and the only one that can help you, and then you ask for it. And in most dua, it's the same format. You praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now as far as the
Something specific from the wording in Al-Fatihah.
Dina's asking for the guidance so you can, I guess.
I mean, that's close.
the way of those, the way of those whom you favor.
اهدنا صراط المستقيم. صراط المستقيم. Right? صراط المستقيم. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم. The صراط المستقيم is what? The straight path, which is the path of
the prophets and the right.
طيب المسلك الرشيد الذي كان عليه نبينا عليه الصلاة والسلام. The path that our Messenger صلى الله عليه وسلم was on. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم. الله أكبر. In Al-Fatihah, اهدنا الصراط المستقيم. He says, أي الطريق القويم, the straight path, المسلك الرشيد, that guided path الذي كان عليه نبينا صلى الله عليه وسلم, that our Messenger صلى الله عليه وسلم was on. So that's why he says this is mansus. This is mansus. This is something that is directly in Al-Fatihah by word. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم. يقول الشيخ الإسلام تيمية رحمه الله. Shaykh al-Islam, he said, وَيَنْبَغِي لِلْخَلْقِ أَنْ يَدْعُوَ بِالْأَدْيَةِ الشَّرْعِيَّةِ الَّتِي جَاءَ بِهَا كِتَابُ السُّنَّةِ. It's appropriate and more befitting that a person uses those du'as that the Prophet ﷺ taught us, that came in the Quran or that came in the Sunnah. There's du'as in the Quran, right? And there's a lot of them. It's a lot of them. Besides ihdina sirat al-mustaqim, there's a lot of du'as in the Quran. He said, now I'll ask you this. What's the benefit? And we did this before, that's why I'm asking. What's the benefit of using the du'a that you find in the Quran or in the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ? From specifically that we already spoke about.
There's no mistakes.
Jay, there's no mistakes. No mistakes in the wording, no mistakes in the dua that's found in the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet. Because we could, not to say you can't make your own dua and your own wording and say what you want to ask for, but it's possible a person does that and they say something that's inappropriate to say in the dua. Or they say something haram, ask for something haram, or they address Allah in a way that Allah shouldn't be addressed. And that's what he says, فَإِنَّ ذَلِكَ لَا رَيْبَ فِي فَضْلِهِ وَحُسْنِهِ. There's no doubt in the virtue found in those du'as in the Quran and the Sunnah. He says, وَأَنَّ الصِّرَاطَ الْمُسْتَقِيمَ الصِّرَاطَ الَّذِينَ أَنْعَمَ اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِمْ مِنَ النَّبِيِّينَ وَالصِّدِّيقِينَ وَالشُّهَدَاءِ وَالصَّالِحِينَ وَحَسْنَ أُولَٰئِكَ رَفِيقًا. And of course, that the straight path, all of this comes under following the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. He said, of course, the straight path is the path that Allah bestowed His grace on from the prophets, the truthful, the shuhada, and the salihin, and the righteous. And those are a great group of people to be in the company of. So saying that every time falls under al-mutaba'a, following the straight path, following the Sunnah of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And he mentioned this before also, how people will leave and abandon the dua of the Prophet ﷺ, right? And they will hold on tighter to the dua of one of their scholars, to one of the ulama, one of the shuyukh. من أعجب العجب أن بعض الأشياخ كتبوا في الذكر أذكار مخترعة سموا بعضها الصراط القويم. He said, you even find that some scholars, they'll write books and they'll name a book of dua, the straight path. And there'll be du'as from themselves. Not that you can't make it, but the straight path is the path of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which is a note just to be careful that we can't go overboard with people. And that's a big part of Tawheed, putting people in their proper places. If we're not allowed to raise the Anbiya, the prophets and the messengers, to the level of worship and above their station, then how do we raise people less than them to a level of almost that they can't make mistakes? It's dangerous. It's dangerous. And we don't have any problem. Most people don't have any problem saying, Imam Abu Hanifa made a mistake. Imam Abu Hanifa, rahimahullah. Imam Abu Hanifa. Imam Malik was wrong in that issue. Imam Malik, no, I ain't right with that. Imam Malik, no. No, that's that Shafi'i. The four Imams, no problem. No problem. But you tell them today, a scholar, he was that position is not that strong like that. I'm not going with that. It's not that strong. You can't say that. They might tell you, A'udhu Billah. They might tell you, A'udhu Billah. You're talking bad about the Shaykh. Overboard. We're not allowed to raise the prophets and the messengers above a certain level. People less than them who are open and prone to making mistakes. That's why the Prophet ﷺ said that every mujtahid, what? Yusibu yukhti. He might be correct. He might make a mistake. If he's correct, he gets 2 rewards. But if he makes a mistake, then he still gets a reward. They're not, the ulama, there's no disrespect to the scholars, But the Muslim has to put everyone in their proper place. No disrespect, but Islam is clear. Islam is clear. Tayyib. And this is an issue that he spoke about before, leaving off the guidance of the Prophet ﷺ and sticking to the guidance, or not the guidance, sticking to something that comes from, to be simple, a person who is open and prone to make a mistake. None of us are perfect. Not even the ulama. The Prophet ﷺ said, Kullu bani Adam All of Bani Adam make mistakes. And the best of them are those who repent. It's not a knock, talking about the scholars. No. It's putting things in the proper place. If we're not allowed to raise Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and that's another issue you mentioned, we're not allowed to mention him in certain lights where he's raised above his level, alayhi salatu wasalam. And how do we do that for somebody way less than him? Sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Tayyib. He says, showing the seriousness of following the Messenger alayhi salatu wasalam, mentioned the hadith of Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال كل أمتي يدخلون الجنة إلا من أبى. قالوا يا رسول الله ومن يأبى؟ قال من أطاعني دخل الجنة ومن عصاني فقد أبى. Hadith رواه البخاري. The hadith where the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, all of my ummah will enter paradise. All of my ummah will enter paradise except for the person who refuses to enter paradise. Except for the person who refuses to enter paradise. So they said, Ya Rasulullah, they asked him, who will refuse to enter paradise? Qal, he says, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, men ata'ani, whoever obeys me, dakhal al-jannah, will enter paradise. Wa man asa'ani, and whoever disobeys me, faqad aba, they have refused. They have refused. Showing all of this comes under al-mutaba, the importance of following the Messenger alayhi salatu wasalam. طيب الثالث, the third one. الإلحاح على الله تعالى. Being persistent and asking over and over and over again. Something that he mentioned before. Right? That, and he says, وَأَنْ لَا يَيْأَسَ الْإِنسَانِ وَيَنْقَطِعْ وَيَقُولْ دَعَوْتْ وَدَعَوْتْ وَلَمْ يُسْتَجَبْ لِي. That a person asks Allah over and over and over and over, and a person doesn't stop. A person doesn't give up hope and say, man, I made dua and Allah answered me. Giving up, all right? Al-ilhah ala Allah, being persistent and pressing the issue, as we say, asking over and over and over. And he talked about it before, the last chapter, that the difference is that we get upset when people keep asking us the same thing. If it was somebody standing outside the door asking for $1 every day, or some change, 2-3 days we mad. Go keep asking me for $1 every day. Right? Literally. Right? We coming up with all, whatever we But Allah doesn't get tired of us asking. And that's why the other hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, where it said that Allah gets mad at the person, is angry with the person who doesn't ask him. Allah is angry with the person who doesn't ask him. Tayyib. He says the person doesn't say, I made dua, and it wasn't answered. They don't give up like this. بَلْ يَكُونْ مُلِحًّا. But a person is mulihhan, is persistent in asking over and over and over again. And this is found in Al-Fatihah. All of this is from Al-Fatihah. So all the answers got to come from Al-Fatihah. He says, دائم الالتجاء إلى مولاي تبارك وتعالى. Always knowing that they're always in need of Allah Jalla wa Ala. طيب. وسورة الفاتحة دلت على أهمية الإلحاح في الدعاء. How does this one here show that from the adab of dua is to keep asking over and over and over?
You have to say that every salat.
There you go. That the seven same verses, we gotta keep saying them over and over and over. The same dua, ihdina siratal mustaqim, iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka. All the stuff that applies, sincerity, following the message, that we do it over and over and over. He says, من جهة أنها السبع المثاني. From the angle that the Al-Fatihah is considered the 7 repeated verses, right? فهي تقرأ وجوبا في كل ركعة من الصلاة فرضا أو نفلا. So Al-Fatihah is read, and 7 verses are read in every rak'ah. In every rak'ah. In the obligatory prayers and in the voluntary prayers. That is over and over we ask him. Over and over and over and over and over. So this shows that from the adab of the etiquette of making dua is to be persistent and not to give up hope. He says, وَلِهَذَا تَقَرَّرَ سُؤَالُ اللَّهِ al-hidayah, that we can constantly ask Allah for guidance. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم. Every rak'ah. Obligatory prayers, voluntary prayers, in the masjid, home, at work, wherever you're at, you're asking the same dua. So we're in constant need, as he says, فَالْمُسْلِمْ لَا يَزَالُ يَحْتَاجُ أَنْ يَلِحْ عَلَى اللَّهِ تَبَارَكَ وَتَعَالَى, that we are constantly in need of being determined and persistent in making dua, that we press in the issue over and over and over, and we don't take the attitude, I made dua for that 3 years ago, it never happened, so I'm on to something else. Despair. Despair. طيب. الرابع, the fourth one, الجزم بالدعاء والعزم في الطلب والمسألة. That a person is determined. They have the determination. They're determined. And they have this, al-azm, al-yaqeen, that they're determined to get the answer that they want. And it's based on a hadith where the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, قال رسول الله عليه الصلاة والسلام, this hadith in Sahih Bukhari and Muslim, لا يقولن أحدكم اللهم اغفر لي إن شئت. One of you shouldn't say, oh Allah, forgive me, if you want to forgive me. That you determined to be forgiven. So we ask with the jazm that we're going to be forgiven. All of that got to be in a person's heart. Allahumma arhamni in shit. Oh Allah, have mercy on me if you choose to have mercy on me. As if a person thinks Allah's not going to have mercy on him. No, that we're determined to get whatever we're asking in that dua. Al-jazm. Laya'zam al-mas'ala. A person should be determined in asking for what they want. We're not dealing with the creation, we're dealing with Al-Khaliq. We're dealing with Allah, we're not dealing with the creation, we're dealing with the Creator who doesn't get tired of us asking. He doesn't get tired of us asking, but he gets angry with the one who stops asking. طيب. He says, فَالْمَطْلُوبُ فِي الدُّعَاء الْعَزْمُ وَأَنْ لَا يَأْتِ الدُّعَاء رُخْوًا يظهر منه الضعف الإقبال أو ضعف اليقين في سؤال الله تبارك وتعالى وطلبه. That the person is supposed to be determined in asking for what they want, and there should be no type of sign of weakness that the dua is not going to be answered. There should be no sign that a person is not sure that if I make dua and I'm sincere in my dua and I do the things I'm supposed to do, I'm sure that my dua is going to be answered. Al-jazm wal-azm. Al-jazm wal-azm. How does this come in Surah Al-Fatihah? Does anybody know? Al-azm. Determination for guidance. I'll give you the answer.
Same ayat.
Yeah.
Which one was it?
You alone we worship, you alone we ask God for everything. Yes, right?
Yeah, I'm taking it.
اهدنا الصراط المستقيم. Over and over and over. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم. Determined to ask for guidance over and over and over. Wujuban. Even if we was to pray sunnah, you still got to say it. طيب. الخامس, the fifth one. حضور القلب وعدم الغفلة عند الدعاء. حضور القلب وعدم الغفلة عند الدعاء. That a person has to be, as we say, there. like mentally you there. You're not just there physically.
Heart should be present.
Heart gotta be there. Heart gotta be there.
No.
They call it hudur al-qalb. That's the word used here, hudur al-qalb. That the heart is present. That the heart is present. And that a person is not negligent during the time of dua. So, mathalan, for example,
What was the term for it, the Arabic term?
حضور القلب. حضور القلب. مثلا, for example, is it more likely that a person's heart is there? We only know, Allah knows what's in the heart. But if you talk about yourself, right? Is it more likely, for example, when you're making dhikr after the salat, is it more likely that your heart is there when you're doing this? Huh? I'm not saying it's not. I'm saying it's more likely that it's there, or when you're sitting there focused on actually the dhikr. Count. What am I saying? Right? It might have happened before. You forget what number you're on. Or was I saying subhanallah or alhamdulillah? I don't know. Let me just start over. Right? Is it more likely that the heart is there focused, which takes effort? طيب, he says حضور القلب, that the heart is present there. وقد قال عليه الصلاة والسلام, the Messenger صلى الله عليه وسلم said, ادعوا الله وأنتم موقنون بالإجابة. This hadith is رواه الترمذي وحسنه الألباني رحمه الله. The Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام said, call on Allah is a command. ادعوا الله وأنتم موقنون بالإجابة. Call on Allah and have certainty that it's going to be answered. وَاعْلَمُوا أَنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يَسْتَجِيبُ دُعَاءً مِنْ قَلْبٍ غَافِلٍ. And know that Allah does not answer the dua from a person whose heart is ghafil, they're negligent, they're not there. Allahu musta'an. طيب, it says, so the matlub is supposed to be that we focus, concentrate, and paying attention. راجعا مقبلا على مولاه. That a person is hopeful that Allah is going to answer that dua. موقنا بأن الله يجيب الدعاء. With certainty that Allah answers the dua, will answer the dua. And we have yaqeen, not if Allah answers it. طيب. It says here, اشتملت سورة الفاتحة على ذلك من جهة التحيّ الذي يأتي للداعي في تلك المقدمة العظيمة بين يدي السؤال. حضور القلب, that the heart is there. From Al-Fatihah. Within Al-Fatihah lets us know that from the etiquette and adab of making dua is that the heart has to be present. From Al-Fatihah. Now remember that, this is a hint. It's before the dua, before Ihdina Sirat al-Mustaqim, right?
Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen.
طيب, what else?
No, I'm saying that that's it. That's it.
And that's it?
Because, listen, well, Allah knows best. Maybe it's going too far, because when a person, and when they say Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, the praise when you praise Allah is a praise with reverence and love. It's not just a general praise.
Right.
So a person's heart has to be it's not like a regular. You can praise a person, but hate him. Where it's different with Allah. When you say Alhamdulillah, it's with love and reverence and all. It's a different kind of praise. Allahu Alam.
Jade. There's more though.
Okay.
Like, it says everything leading up is a preparation for the dua. Right? Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, Maliki Yawmiddin. All of it is preparing the person. Ihdina Sirat al-Mustaqim. Allahu Akbar.
Because of the hadith that so the Fatihah is the hadith of Qudsi that is two halves.
Baini wa baina abdi, yeah.
Right.
Al-Fatiha, half of it is for Allah and half of it is for us, the slaves. Jade. He says, what shows it, التهيّ الذي يأتي للداعي, the preparation that the person makes before the actual dua, Ihdina Sirat al-Mustaqim, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, those ayat that come before it. It says, فَلَمْ يَبْدَأْ بِالدُّعَى مُبَاشَرًا. Al-Fatiha doesn't just open up, Ihdina Sirat al-Mustaqim, but it's a preparation leading up to it. So if the heart is there, Alhamdulillah, praising Allah, Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim, Malik Yawmiddin, Iyyaka na'budu, all of the ikhlas, all of that, and then comes the dua, and then comes the dua. Ihdina Sirat al-Mustaqim. He says, وَإِنَّمَا جَاءَ ذِكْرُ اللَّهِ وَتَعْظِيمُهُ وَتَمْجِيدُهُ وَالثَّنَاءُ عَلَيْهِ تَبَارَكَ وَتَعَالَى بَيْنَ يَدَيْ الدُّعَاءِ. He said, all of this comes, the praising of Allah, glorifying Him, all of it comes before the dua. So that a person is what? Focus. They prepare to make the dua, that their heart is there. طيب. As-sadisu. The sixth one is, and this one has a little more detail than the rest. At-tawassul. At-tawassul. At-tawassul, or توصل الداعي إلى الله تبارك وتعالى بالوسائل المشروعة. Do we all know tawassul? The word tawassul? Seeking nearness. Seeking nearness. Seeking nearness. طيب. That a person, when they're making dua, he says, توصل الداعي إلى الله. A person is seeking nearness to Allah with the things that Islamically are legislated to seek nearness with Allah by. Because a tawassul, the ulama break it down into two types. A tawassul al-mashru', a tawassul ghayr al-mashru'. The tawassul, the seeking nearness that is permissible, things that are permissible to try to get closer to Allah, and things that are not permissible. People can say, I'm trying to get closer to Allah. Yarhamukallah. They might be doing things, say, why are you doing that? Just trying to get closer to Allah, right? It might not be a permissible way to get closer to Allah. You with me? Tayyib. He says in here, and this is that book that Shaykh al-Islam Taymiyyah has, At-Tawassul Wasila. There's a whole book on it. The issue is, as he says, وَهَذَا بَابٌ مُهِمٌ وَخَطِيرٌ فِي نَفْسِ الْوَقْتِ. He said this chapter is important and is dangerous at the same time. It's important and it's dangerous at the same time. وكثير من الناس يزل فيه بسبب سوء الفهم وعدم المعرفة بحقيقة التوسل المشروع. And a lot of people make mistakes in this chapter. A lot of people make mistakes when it comes to seeking nearness to Allah due to a misunderstanding and not knowing the reality of what the legislated means are. What are the ways that are permissible Islamically to get closer to Allah? ولهذا قال العلماء التوسل منه توسل مشروع ومنه توسل ممنوع. That's why the ulama say that tawassul, some of it, seeking nearness to Allah, some of it is permissible and some of it is not permissible. Not every time somebody says they're doing something, right, to get closer to Allah, that doesn't mean it's permissible in Islam to do that, whether they think it is or not. He says, so the first thing, at-tawassul al-mashru', the legislated type of seeking nearness to Allah, he says, bi-thalathati umur, with three things. All of these things are mentioned in Al-Fatihah. All of them are mentioned in Al-Fatihah. This book is major. MashaAllah. Tayyib. This one should be easy. He says, Al-awwal, التوصل إلى الله تبارك وتعالى بأسمائه وصفاته وهو أعظم ما يكون. Seeking nearness to Allah through His names and attributes. طيب قال الله تعالى وَلِلَّهِ الْأَسْمَاءُ الْحُسْنَى فَادْعُوهُ بِهَا. Allah said Allah has the most beautiful names. Call on Him by those names. قال تعالى, and that's in Surah Al-A'raf. That ayat is in Surah Al-A'raf, ayat 180. قال تعالى قُلِ ادْعُوا اللَّهَ أو ادْعُوا الرَّحْمَنَ. Call on Allah by the name Allah or Ar-Rahman. So you can get closer to Allah through His names and attributes. فَهَذَانِ اسْمَانِ فِي سُورَةِ الْفَاتِحَةِ وَسِيلَةٌ بَيْنَ يَدَيِ الدُّعَاءِ. So these two names mentioned in Al-Fatihah, which are Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim. Two names mentioned in the Surah Al-Fatihah that are used as a wasila, a tawassul, seeking nearness to Allah through His names. A tawassul, qurba bi-ta'a, seeking closeness to Allah through obedience. Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim. طيب. Clear? That's the first one. The second one, وَالثَّانِي التوصل إلى الله بعملك الصالح. Seeking getting closer to Allah by your righteous deeds.
My righteous deeds.
Yes. Because what we do, generally we do what? No. If I'm in a situation, for example, right? I bump into you, I say, yo, man, I'm going to this joint. Make dua for me.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Make dua for me. Tell you,
Make dua for me.
can we do that? That's permissible. طيب. The second one, التوصل إلى الله بعملك الصالح, with your righteous actions, a person themselves, وبعبادتك له وإخلاصك, and with worship, by a person being sincere themselves, with their i'timad alayh, and by depending on Allah, or raja'ik, and by having hope in Allah, or ubudiyatik lahu, all things that are coming from a person themselves. I'm in a situation, I'm stepping up my ibadah, my worship. I'm in a situation, I'm making more dua. I'm in a situation, I'm praying more. I'm in a situation, I'm fasting more. I'm in a situation, I'm reading more Quran, me personally, not the third party or another person. طيب.
So Muslims are two types: legislative
Mhm.
and
Not legislative.
non-legislative.
These come under
Legislative.
the legislative terms. Seeking closeness to Allah through His names and attributes, seeking closeness to Allah by doing worship, righteous deeds. طيب. He says, إذن التوسل بالإيمان والعمل الصالح وبالتوحيد ومحبة الرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم وباتباعه هذه كلها أعمال الصالحة يتوسل إلى الله تبارك وتعالى بها. All of these things, Iman itself, a person's faith, a belief, a person's understanding and practice of a tawheed, the practice of a tawheed, right? Love for the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, following him. All of these things are righteous actions that a person gains nearness to Allah by doing them. وَهَذَا مَذْكُورٌ فِي سُورَةِ الْفَاتِحَةِ. All of these things are mentioned in Surah Al-Fatihah. في قولك. Where in Al-Fatihah?
إياك نعبد.
جيد. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. جيد. Al-Ikhlas. إياك نعبد. Worship is wide. It's a lot. Worship is comprehensive, it's vast. It's not just salah. Love of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam is worship, right? Implementing tawheed, worshiping Allah, ikhlas is worship. Tayyib, he says, so all of those things are considered, or all of those righteous actions come under إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. أي أنت يا Allah وحدك أخصك بالعبادة. You alone Allah, I single you out with worship. Not just salah. Sadaqah, right? Smile on your brother's face, sadaqah. Following the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, worship, right? Therefore, when the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, not the ayat, when he said the hadith about extending the salams to those you know and those you don't know. Implementing the hadith as ibadah, is worship. That's worship. Following the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam is worship. All of those things come under Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'een. You alone we worship and you alone we seek your aid and your help. Tayyib. And then after that comes the dua. Ihdina as-siratal mustaqim. So all of these things come leading up to the dua. Wadi? So far we got getting closer to Allah through His names and His attributes, and through our own actions in worship. Tayyib, al-thalithu. And I think we're going to stop after this one. Al-thalithu. التوسل إلى الله بدعاء الصالحين الأحياء الحاضرين. Seeking nearness to Allah from the dua of someone that is righteous, alive and present. Righteous, alive and present. Meaning, if they're righteous, right, then that means we shouldn't be asking somebody who we don't see to be on their deen to be making dua for us. Unless it's just something to say, make dua for me, Shaykh. Right? You mentioned righteous and alive. Why mention alive? What's the benefit of mentioning that they need to be alive?
The person who's dead can't make dua for you.
Huh?
The person who's dead can't make dua for you.
Do people do that?
Yeah, they do it.
People do that. That's the benefit of mentioning. People do it. People go to the grave, or they don't go to the grave. They call on dead people. They ask dead people for stuff. It might not be in front of us right here, but it might be. You'd be surprised. You'd be surprised. Huh? التوسل بالدعاء الصالحين. التوسل بالدعاء, the dua of somebody righteous, somebody you see to be righteous. They're living, they're alive, and they're hadir, they're present. Meaning they're not in another country. You'd be surprised. Alhamdulillah, some of these things we don't deal with. طيب. For example, بأن تقول للرجل أمامك تحسبه من أهل الخير والصلاة ادعو الله لنا أو ادعو لي وللمسلمين ونحو ذلك. You see somebody, you come across somebody, simply, you see him to be better than you in deen. We deen him. MashaAllah, it's a good person, it's a good brother. Make dua for me. You know, we do a lot. Make dua for me. There's no problem with this. Or make dua for the Muslims, right? No problem. And that's what we used to. That's what we usually do. But what we can't do is depend on their dua, and we not doing nothing. We got the problem, or we asking for something, we want something, but we don't do any extra worship to try to get it. We just telling everybody we come across, yo, make dua for them. But before that, the second type is a tawassul, be my own worship, my own actions. After that is the third one, that someone that you see to be righteous, living, hadir, they're present. We won't go into that because that's a bit much. Maybe we can do that. Tayyib. Clear?
Well, now, first just calling on Allah by His names and attributes.
His names and attributes. Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim.
But that's kind of similar to the second one, being close to Allah by things that you do.
I mean, that's going to fall under it.
Right, exactly.
But
It's more,
a person, that's a little more general.
Right,
The
exactly.
first one is restricted to calling Allah by his names, and you got to know his names in order to fit the situation you in. It's even better if you know Allah's names. You know the names and the situation fits a name. The second one is a little more general, even though the first one is included in the second one. The second one is all types of worship. The third one is that you ask someone else that you see to be upright and righteous to make dua for you. He says, إِذَنْ يَتَوَصَّلِ إِلَى اللَّهِ بِأَسْمَائِهِ وَصِفَاتِهِ. That's the first one. The second one, وَبِإِيمَانِ الْعَبْدِ بِهِ وَعِبَادَتِهِ وَطَاعَتِهِ لَهُ. And the second one is that a person with their own iman, their own belief and faith, and their own righteous actions, that they see to get close to Allah. And the second one will be dua as-salihin al-ahya. And the third one with the dua of the righteous person, the righteous living person. He says, وَلَعَلَّ هَذَا النَّوْعَ الثَّالِث. The third one, قَدْ يُسْتَفَادْ أَيْضًا مِنْ قَوْلِهِ. Where could we get that from in Al-Fatihah? The third one, that someone else is making dua for me or from Al-Fatihah. Someone else is making dua for me.
oh, for me.
Yeah.
I said someone else.
Someone else.
What's the question?
The third type is that you ask someone else to make dua for you. Somebody righteous, living, holy, present. Right? But where in our Fatiha do we get that benefit from?
Yeah, no. Yeah.
You alone we worship, and you alone we seek your help. This is Mumtaz, Jiddan, Jiddan. This is nice, man, mashallah. Anybody? No?
Yeah, man.
What you know, what is it? No, that's not it. I wanted you to
Good try.
Fadl. Oh, yeah. Ihdina sirat al-mustaqim.
Somebody said that, didn't they? No.
Say iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. How though? Huh? Who said that?
Oh, God.
Sister?
Gina.
One of the sisters? MashaAllah. So, hey, yeah, guide us.
No.
Guide us. Ihdina sirat al-mustaqim. Guide us to the straight path. Allahu Akbar. MashaAllah. لأنك هنا تدعو لك ولغيرك. In that position, in that there, the person is praying not just for themselves, for other people. Ihdina.
SubhanAllah.
Ihdina sirat al-mustaqim. Allah Akbar. He says, وَدُعَاء دُعَاء الْمُسْلِمِ لِإِخْوَانِهِ الْمُسْلِمِينَ فِي ظَهْرِ الْغَيْبِ مُسْتَجَابٍ. And the dua of the Muslim, the dua that the Muslim makes for another Muslim behind their back is answered.
So to expound off of what you just said right there, so we doing that every time we pray, right?
Yeah. بِحُضُورِ الْقَلْبِ. If the heart is there and understands all of that, it hits home a little more. Al-Fatihah hits home a little more if all of that's considered when you reciting it. Allah. He says, وَإِذَا دَعَى مُؤْمِنْ لِأَخِيهِ وَكَّلَ اللَّهُ مَلَكًا يَقُولُ وَلَكَ مِثْلُ ذَلِكَ. And if a Muslim makes dua for their brother or their sister, then Allah appoints an angel for that person who's making dua to say, and for you the same thing. وعن أبي درداء رضي الله عنه عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم دعوة المرء المسلم لأخيه بظهر الغيب مستجابة. That the Prophet ﷺ said, the dua of a person, the dua of a Muslim for their Muslim brother or sister behind their back when they don't know that they're making dua for them, the dua is answered. وعند رأسه ملك موكل. And the person that's making dua, Allah specifies and designates an angel, the angel by their head. كلما دعا لأخيه بخير. Every time that they make dua for something good for their brother or sister, قال الملك, that the angel says, قال الملك الموكل به آمين ولك بمثل. The angel says every time you make the dua for the brother and he don't know you're making dua for him, that Allah points an angel by your head saying Ameen to the dua, and then making dua for you, and for you the same thing that you ask for him or her. فالدعاء للمؤمنين بظهر الغيب ثوابه عظيم لا يحصى. That the dua for the believer, the dua for the believers when they don't know that you're making dua for them, the reward for it is a great reward. It's a heavy reward. قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم من استغفر للمؤمنين والمؤمنات كتب الله له بكل مؤمن ومؤمنة حسنة.
And just was saying about the Ameen, then it make you think about how you when my Ameen coincide with the angels Ameen. But you're
like
so it's going down all the way
all the way
around.
around. من استغفر. This hadith رواه الطبراني وحسنه الألباني رحمه الله, that whoever seeks forgiveness for the believing men and the believing women, for the believing men and the believing women, that Allah writes for every person, He says, كتب الله له بكل مؤمن, for every man, every believing man and every woman, He gets written a hasana, a good deed.
Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim.
Allah. من استغفر للمؤمنين والمؤمنات. Whoever seeks forgiveness for the believing men and the believing women. When a person does that, that Allah, كتب الله له, that Allah writes for the person making dua, one good deed for every believing man and for every believing woman he gets. Allah.
You see forgiveness for your brother.
Yes.
Allah writes a good deed for
You. And if you seek forgiveness for, it says this is a plural, al-mu'mineen wa mu'minat, for the believers, men and women, right? That Allah writes a good deed for you, for every believing man and woman. You get one. He says here, فَإِذَا قُلْتَ فِي دُعَائِكَ, if you said in your dua, اللهم اغفر للمسلمين والمسلمات والمؤمنين والمؤمنات الأحياء منهم والأموات. He says, ملايين, that covers millions. If you said, oh Allah, forgive the Muslim men, the Muslim women, the Muslim believers, the Muslim female believers, the dead, the ones that are dead, the ones that are alive, that covers millions. And you would get one hasana for every one. Bihamdillah, as he says, bihamdillah. Allah Akbar. طيب, he says, لأن لك بكل مسلم حسنة حيا كان أو ميتا, because you will get one reward for every Muslim, whether they dead or alive, من زمن آدم إلى أن يرث الله الأرض ومن عليها, from the time of Adam عليه السلام until Allah. Allah Akbar. فهل يليق,
It's a little more than millions, huh?
الله أكبر, هل يليق أن تقتصر في دعائك لنفسك وتنسى إخوانك? So, is it appropriate, is it befitting that you just make dua for yourself and don't make dua for your brothers and sisters? Allahumma musta'an. طيب, we'll stop there. Inshallah. Any questions? The last one,
Oh,
the last three, let's say seven. We'll finish those inshallah next week.
What about the ayat that refers to that?
Which one?
The ayat, and where Allah says, and seek forgiveness for the believing man and woman.
Yeah.
47:19.
Respectfully, then, because,
Like,
47:19.
Hey, listen, though, the way to this kind of break down this stuff out.
that thing
Crazy.